Hi everyone, my name is Michael Place. This is an introduction to a series of webinars on how to be more mindful and how to be more resilient in a pandemic or a highly stressful experience that overwhelms us. Like, what do we do in those moments of overwhelm? I'm really excited to be presenting this to you all. This is my life's work. And we'll talk more about why I'm so passionate about that later. If you are watching this prior to the webinar, I'm really looking forward to seeing you on the webinar where we are going to take some of these concepts and really put it into practice. It's going to be a lot of fun. Look forward to seeing you there. To begin with, I want to talk about man's search for meaning. A lot of you know Viktor Frankl. He is a Holocaust survivor, and in his book, he talks about the choice that we have to choose how we want to respond, no matter what's going on in our lives. Two of my favorite quotes from his book are, "Our greatest freedom is the freedom to choose our attitude. It is not freedom from conditions, but it's freedom to take a stand towards those conditions." Ultimately, what Viktor Frankl was talking about is cognitive flexibility. So this idea that between a stimulus and a response is a space. And in that space, we get to choose how we want to respond to the stimulus. One way to increase our awareness of that space and our ability to choose is to meditate. Mindful meditation is the practice of being with what is, being aware of what is, being present in the moment. So when your body is going into a state of fear, when your body is responding in an effort to protect you, mindfulness meditation makes you more aware of those sensations and then allows you to actively choose how you want to respond. Cognitive flexibility doesn't always come natural to us, but with practice, it's something that we can cultivate over time. Where my passion began for cognitive flexibility really is my childhood. So as some of you know, I spent 9 years in the New York City foster care system, and in those 9 years, I experienced many difficult situations. However, it was my mindset, it was my positive mindset in light of those difficult situations that made a tremendous difference for me. And it's been my life's work to figure out how to share that idea with others, how to cultivate a more positive mindset with others. Take a look at this video. Now, what you might have noticed in the video, or at least there's a lot of things going on, I know, but one thing I really want to bring your attention to is my neighbor, where he said, you can be from the projects, but you don't have to be the projects. Again, this idea that no matter what's going on in your life, you don't have to succumb to the conditions, that you do have a choice. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. A lot of us are talking about the coronavirus pandemic as a very traumatic experience. I hear this from my friends. I see it on social media. This is a really traumatizing time, everyone is saying. It's so traumatic, it's so traumatic, it's so traumatic. Well, I understand why we feel that way, but I want to bring our attention to the classic, the textbook definition of what trauma is. Trauma is the psychological and physiological aftermath that results from a highly stressful experience that overwhelms an individual's ability to cope. One of my favorite definitions is from Judith Herman, and she says it's an affiliation of the powerless. So in order for a situation to become traumatizing, we have to feel powerless. We have to feel like our ability to cope has been severely overwhelmed. So in order to get through the coronavirus pandemic or any other stressful experience and be resilient, we want to figure out what can we do to cope in this situation? How can we not feel powerless, and how can we take some of our power back? One of the ways that I love to talk about this is a Serenity Prayer. The Serenity Prayer goes like this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Every time I hear that prayer, I feel a sense of relaxation in my chest, and I feel more open and receptive to what the world, to the present moment, right? To what the world has to offer. Because I'm aware of my power. And in that situation, in these situations, my power varies between actively changing and doing something to cope and learning how to manage my thoughts and to be okay with what I cannot change. What I always say to people is that you don't need a belief in God in order to feel the energy of this prayer. What's important is that you know what you can do and you let go of the things that you can't. Here's a quick video on the science of why this might be difficult for us to master at first. Check it out. Now, what you notice is that our brain and our nervous system has been fundamentally wired to keep us safe. That there's a part of our brain called the thalamus that's always scanning for data, always perceiving what's going on out there in the world. And then that information is sent to two parts of our brain. One part of our brain called the amygdala that is hardwired to keep us safe no matter what, right? No matter what, that part of our brain is there to protect us. And sometimes it gets out of hand, right? Sometimes it gets out of hand. So then we have to practice our ability to use our prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that's more rational, perhaps more positive, and to get our body out of that response, that fear response. One of the ways that I tell people to manage that more effectively is to ask questions, to evaluate what's going on in their lives. So I am an American. I live here in South Australia. I am not a permanent resident. I'm not a citizen of this country. And so when the coronavirus pandemic was happening, I had a choice to make. Do I want to go back home or do I want to stay here in South Australia? I had some questions to ask myself. I had 2 days to pack my things and catch the last flight out from South Australia to America. And I could have done it. But ultimately, I started asking myself some really challenging questions. I said, am I really in danger, right? Practically speaking, am I really in danger? And is the pathway to my safety, is it really returning home, right? What can I do to better take control over the situation, if anything? So I realized that, okay, so the virus is spreading throughout the air. I have health insurance, that's wonderful in case I do get sick. I realized that there were precautions that I could take in order to protect myself from the virus, such as wearing a mask, hand sanitizer. I have hand sanitizer in my car, so when I go to the supermarket, et cetera, et cetera. One of the other things that I did was ask myself, how can I look at this situation differently, right? How can I look at this situation differently? And is there anyone I can reach out to for support if I ever need it? So I might lose my job, right? Income opportunities might not be available for me in this country, but is it so serious that I need to go back home to America? And so when you're going through a stressful situation, look at it rationally. Really start to question, what's going on here? How can I take better control over what's happening? And if things do go left, if things really do turn out to be quite difficult, who can support me? Do I have family and friends who can support me? So don't panic, prepare. If you're watching this prior to the webinar, I am looking forward to seeing you on the webinar where we're going to take all this information and to really put this into practice so that we can get to that space of cultivating more cognitive flexibility in our lives. If you are watching this after the series of webinars are over, there's a link at the bottom of this video which you can use to work through some of the challenges in your life right now in a more practical and mindful way. Now, before we wrap up, here is a quick 10-minute mindfulness meditation that you could use to cultivate that space between stimulus and response. Check it out.